Boards. Board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. We are starting off this streaming with a bit of me singing and Ellie dancing. And over there to this side of me is the person known as Ellie. And now Ellie is on the other side of the screen. We have moved it almost magically. And now, hey ho, you can look at Ellie's old, well, maybe it's Ellie's first book, Board Games Board. We are going to be talking about designing games for your family. That is what we're going to be talking about with the guest known as Ellie. Hey!
Jazz hands! Woo!
And good morning and hello, Sate, and I agree 100%. And I am Bez. It is bedtime in some countries, and we are blethering about board games. And today we are talking about designing for families with Ellie Dix. Now, the reason I'm having Ellie Dix to talk about this is because, Ellie's made some wonderful games for families, whether it's Venus, which is sort of a roll and write thing, some of the if people have not heard of you and your cracker games.
Uranus? Are you talking about Uranus? No, I haven't made a game called Venus.
I was talking about Uranus. I'm sorry. The sort of root connection game where
building. It's a network.
Yeah. I'm very sorry, Ellie. Thanks for setting me straight.
You're welcome. But the name Uranus is better for families because who doesn't want to put Uranus in the center of the table? That's the whole point.
So basically appealing to the kids and adults' childish sense of humor.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Embrace it.
And yes, but there's nothing wrong with putting the planet Uranus in the center of a table. And good morning, Alan. It's lovely to see you. So, in a minute or two, could you explain who you are? And yes,
I will. So I'm Ellie Dix. I run the Dark Imp, which is a board game publishing company designing games for families. So I design games that are suitable for families with children aged 8 and up. And that's really what I'm all about. But I don't just design the games. I also try and put out stuff on my channels that will help parents to have positive board game experiences. That's what the book's about. That's what the videos that I put out on YouTube are about, and some of the blogs as well. So I'm kind of really focused on getting more families to play games and trying to create games that help them do that. Oh, you've got the pop-up. Get a free game.
And there's all sorts of things that you can check out. And of course, right now, there is your cracker game, which we will get into this collection of 6 different games, and you can invent obviously your own. There's a book that talks about some design tips. And I guess that's part of as you were going through those tips, it would be interesting to talk about those challenges and stuff a little bit down the line and how we can maybe riff off those and maybe expand, because obviously we don't have to limit ourselves to 60 words. Thank goodness. If we did, it would be an incredibly short show. But let's move swiftly on. That is the preview of what's going to be happening in about 10-15 minutes. First, we need to chat about brilliant things. Brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant?
Wow. Trays are brilliant. And I was saying to Bez before the show, it was excellent because this morning I was using a tray and I thought to myself, God, trays are brilliant. And then I thought, yes, I'm on Bez's show today. I'm going to have the tray as my brilliant thing. So I think trays are brilliant because normally you can only carry 2 cups of tea. If you want to carry 3 cups of tea, it's quite a challenge. You can do that if you have 2 identical cups with exactly the same handle, then that's all right to balance. But it can be a little bit tricky. So if you have a tray, you can carry all sorts of, you can have the teapot. So yesterday I was taking a teapot upstairs, and, you know, this is in the afternoon sometimes when it's not a weekday, I might do a little bit of work from bed. And, you know, took my tea tray up there, my lovely cup of tea. So actually that was Saturday. Yes, and trays also yesterday used for lots of components, board game components, packaging up these little bags which go
keeping it tidy. Yep.
Yeah, which go inside the cracker game. So I'll show you them later. But there are all these different coloured cubes in them, and you need about, you know, the same number in each bag. So, and they have a little lip on the side. It's brilliant. You can just shove them all in, and then a quick wipe down, and they can use something else. Ain't they excellent? I love a tray. How about you, Bez?
I do appreciate a tray. I think, yeah. And by the way, hello, Odin. It is lovely to see you. And let's all celebrate trays because, yeah, it's kind of like, I think you've basically covered it all. I don't think I really have anything else to say. It helps you carry stuff. It helps you kind of manage stuff. You can put trays on top of trays. Sometimes that's a thing that you might do. I mean, like, if you've got a bowl, as long as the food doesn't go above the surface of the bowl, you might even put a tray on top of those bowls. Multi-story trays.
And I have a really pretty tray next to my bed, which is, I love these tiny trays that you can just get, like, you can put stuff, you know, so you can have your cup of tea on a tray next to your bed, right? Or, I know this is all about drinking tea in bed, but that's not the only use for trays. And but it can, you know, keep kind of everything together. So if you take your rings off at night, you shove them on the tray, they're not going to go down the side of the bed. And it keeps the surface of the table clear. Brilliant trays.
It's all about the lip.
Yeah, it's all about the lip, definitely. What would a tray without a lip would just be a chopping board, and it would be useless.
I mean, chopping board. I mean, let's get to chopping boards tomorrow, unless, you know, maybe the guest tomorrow wants to. I mean, I won't have you denigrating chopping boards on this show.
No, I'm not saying that the chopping board is wrong. But you might as well not bother having a tray. You might as well just use a chopping board if the lip wasn't important.
I get this. And I'm going to say that, and hello, Chris, and hello, Alex. It's lovely to see you. We're just talking about how brilliant trays are. And I am going to say that, yes, chopping boards are great too, but chopping boards you can use as a tray. I mean, imagine, like, when you get to charcuterie. I mean, like, you've got all those bits of meat. It's kind of like a big extended plate, really, at that point.
It is, but, you know, if you imagine taking a load of cups of tea around on a chopping board, you'd be worried. You'd be worried about them scooting off the edge.
I absolutely agree with you. Use the right thing for the right purpose. Exactly. And so I think all we want to say here is that trays are brilliant.
They are.
And thank you very much. And now let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So here's where I invite everybody, whether you're in the comments or maybe you're watching this after the fact, ponder in your own head. What have you enjoyed recently? Because hopefully there's something you can say, yeah, I enjoyed that, even if it was just a nice meal, or maybe someone saying thank you to you. For me, I want to say that I really enjoyed going over to see Chris and McCall yesterday. Hi again, Chris. I'm not just saying that because you're in chat, but genuinely it was lovely seeing them. And oh yeah, I also caught up with Dave Gorman. That was decent. We played a couple of games, which I'll get to in a minute. And how about you, Ellie?
Well, yesterday it was our wedding anniversary, and we went to the Ritz for tea. It was pretty special.
Go into the Ritz.
We didn't get on our top hats, but we did get all glammed up, so it was nice. And on Saturday night, my mum came to stay. Thank you for the anniversary wishes. On Saturday night, my mum came to stay and we played some games. And I always love it when she comes because I play games with her that, you know, I choose fairly simple strategy games that I can explain fairly easily to her and that she can grasp quite easily. And she's game for anything. So if the boys, my children, turn their nose up at something, she'll just say yes. She'll say yes to anything. It's great. So we played some Imhotep. We played Quicks and Lost Cities. I love Lost Cities. Play that whenever I can. So that was nice too.
Because it is a board game show, sometimes we talk a tiny bit more about the games that we've played. And hello, Jeroen. It is lovely to see you. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing the R properly. Jeroen, I think it is. But so, I think the first game we played yesterday was Wavelength. I don't know if you know this one.
Bez, you should make yourself bigger.
Yeah. Do you know this one?
No.
Okay, let me open the box. It's by Wolfgang Warsch, and the people who made Monikers, I believe. Anyway, so it's got this the game operates with this big dial. And so you've got this spinny dial, which kind of spins a target round, and then you close it, and one person has to say, for example, something that's useless or useful. And I would look at it and say, okay, this is where the ticker is. And then I say, okay, on this side, it's useless. On this side, it's useful. And I am going to say toenail clippings. And so where do you want the red dial to be? Left or right?
Across to the useless side.
Here or?
No, that's the useful side, isn't it?
No, this is the useless.
Oh, yes, I want it, well, further. They're not useful for anything, are they? Yeah.
Do you want it all the way here?
Well, a little bit, maybe. I can't think what they might be useful for. Some sort of calcium extraction, maybe. Go ahead, put it there.
Okay, and then we reveal. And then we... So you would have gotten 2 points here. Okay. I should have said something a little bit more useful. It wasn't the best clue, but, you know, I was under the time pressure, which normally when you aren't explaining the game on a live stream, you have a little bit more time. Yep. And that was really fun. And I quite like my cover, but yeah, it was lots of fun. Then we also played this game, Abracada What, which has like the Hanabi mechanic of everyone's things are hidden, yep. But you can see everybody else's, but not your own hand. Now, what happens is you get to cast magic spells. The magic spells might be spell number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. And there's one tile that says 1, 8 tiles that say 8, and 2 tiles that say 2. You get the pattern. And basically, it's a game of looking around at other people's stuff, saying, okay, what do they have? Okay, what am I likely to have? And then making a little bet. Also, what magical effect do you really need to have happen? And yeah, well, I was worried that it was going to be really complicated and difficult to understand because there's a lot of text for all the spells on these player reference sheets. But actually, it was really enjoyable once we got into it. And then you play it several times until someone scores like 8 points. Yeah, that's a good shout.
From the box, it looks like a family weight game. Is that right, do you think?
Yeah, I would say both of these are very much family games.
Yeah.
And we did play one of the L games. I've decided that I'm going to stop chatting about the L games that I play on the contest in case like the other judges want to start listening in, and it's not fair for me to be influencing everyone. But we played one of the L games about 6 or 7 times, and yeah, we had a bit of a chat. It was good times. It was a lovely day evening with Chris and McCall. So thank you very much.
Very good.
And would you like to chat a little bit more about the games that you played?
Well, I mean, Lost Cities, I keep pulling out. I took it on holiday in the summer. I know it's not a new game, and we've had it for quite a long time. We've played it so many times. I've played it with so many different people, and because it's so easy to communicate the rules, and it's got that wonderful balance of being easy to teach, easy to learn, and but having lots to think about. And the other really lovely thing about it is you can play a game and think, oh, I know what I did wrong. And then you think, I've sorted it. I've got the strategy now. I've got the winning strategy. And then you play another game and you're like, it didn't work. Or, oh no, they beat me again. And they did something totally different. And there are lots of different ways you can play. I mean, I played with my brother. He came over a week or so ago. And he started, for the first half of the game, he was discarding cards. That's all he did. I was like, what are you doing? And then, he came from behind and started playing a load of stuff. I've never seen anyone play like that before. So I like the fact.
Did your brother win?
No, he didn't win.
Okay.
I beat him in that game. Then we played another.
Yeah, this is a beautiful 2-player game by Reiner Knizia where you're basically growing sets. And yeah, it's all about building your numbers. And once you've ventured in, once you've started your expedition, you're hoping to get to a certain number of returns. But if you don't manage to get it up to 20, then okay, this isn't been a successful expedition.
There's this real push your luck element because this is really, I think, a game of hand management. You have 8 cards and you always feel like you want more than 8 cards in your hand. You're trying to keep cards that you don't want your opponent to have access to, but they aren't the cards that are most useful to you. You have to put down lower value cards first, and you have to put your doubling or tripling or quadrupling bets down before you put any numbers down. And so it's a push your luck game. Do
Absolutely.
I think I'm going to get more cards in this color or this suit? What am I going to hold on to? What do I think they want? What can I afford to throw away? And it's all this kind of push and pull about what can I keep in my hand? And you really just want a huge hand, and you can't have that. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so nice, actually. It's good.
Yeah, it is a lovely game, and yeah, one of Knizia's classics, I would say, for sure.
Yeah.
And you said you played Quicks, the roll and write game?
Yep, played that as well. And again, that's really, Mum hadn't played that. It was kind of late in the evening. I said, well, I can explain in 2 minutes. So we got started. And she's very mathematical. She enjoys that kind of thing. And yeah, I've got a version with a padded lid. I really like that, rolling in the lid. I find that quite satisfying. And, just the fact that you are trying to get 4 different strips of ascending numbers or descending numbers. It's so simple, but there's always so much, choice, really, at least in the beginning of the game. Do I go for a number that's in the middle of a row or limiting my chances? And that's that's I think actually, what we're going to be talking about is family games and what makes them great. If you've got a game like both of these that is quick to learn and easy to teach, but has a lot of choices and has a lot of replayability because of the nature of, dice rolling or card drafting, then it's just, they're very rich activities.
For sure. And you don't even necessarily need that many choices for each turn. Maybe even a choice of X or Y, and that could literally be it. But if you've got that binary choice every single turn, then it's going to multiply and it's going to become exponential, and you will still be able to, we'll get into all that things. Yep. And let's look at, there's people trying to organize game groups and ask people to move between countries to join us for games, which unfortunately isn't the easiest thing to do, especially in these days. There's a lot of love for Wavelength. There's a reminder that in Germany, Wavelength is called Perfect Match, which is very ridiculous. It's not a name that fits the game at all.
Wavelength is good.
We've got, I think, Odin says they got in games of Coloretto, Saluna, Yahtzee, Potion Explosion, Dungeon Roll, Dice Forge, Butterfly, and a bubble game that Odin can't remember the name for. That's quite a lot. Is that all on Sunday? Wow. And I think that brings us to the questionably quick questions. Are you ready?
Oh, yes. Okay.
So, does your mum want to play new games, or do you generally initiate?
Both. She does. She wants to play new games. She's happy to learn stuff. She comes over to the house a lot just to play games. So, she really enjoys it, and I love playing with her.
Where exactly in the world are you, and what time is it right now?
I am near Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire, and it is 10:20 a.m.
So, does your mum play yogi?
I have not played yogi with my mum. My mum is 82, almost 83, and has had two hip replacements. So it may be that she could do so. In fact, it might be quite funny. I know this is supposed to be a quick thing, but I was just being reminded of it when we had a power cut the other day. And the best power cut we ever had was when my mum was there, and we decided we would do murders. We would do deaths, like dramatic deaths, and we did this sort of who can die most dramatically by candlelight competition. And my mum's was hilarious because she just sort of, we'd all done these, kind of staggering all over the room, clutching our chests, and then she just very gradually slid down her chair, and onto the floor until she was lying flat, shaking with laughter. It was the most funny thing you've ever seen, her dying. But she couldn't get up again.
So your mum was shaking with laughter?
Yeah, she was honestly shaking with silent laughter as she was gradually sliding down her chair and onto the floor.
So won't be winning any Oscars anytime soon,
seeing
as they can't...
Everybody else's was so over the top dramatic, and she was so understated. It was perfect, but it made me think of yogi because she couldn't get up off the floor. I mean, it took us a while to get her up, so it was hilarious. It was probably because she was laughing so much. But yeah, no, I haven't played yogi with her yet, but maybe that would be actually quite a good one for Christmas. I'll think about it.
Yeah, Chris suggests why not play it so you can get to total advantage.
Yeah. Maybe I'll tie a hand around my back and give myself some other disadvantage. I'm not very good at yogi anyway.
And we've got a question from Alex. Would you prefer to have a meatball-sized duck or a duck-sized meatball?
I'd prefer... Oh, that's quite hard because we used to have runner ducks in the garden, 5 of them, and they are very cool. I'd probably prefer to have a meeple-sized duck that could live on my desk because I do like pets, and that would be really quite cool. Yeah, as long as it didn't make too much mess. But yeah, I think a duck-sized meeple would just get in the way.
I'm imagining that you have to maybe get some astroturf for them or something, maybe like a little shallow pool, maybe you construct a little thing and
yeah, I like it. The idea of fairy gardens has always appealed to me as a child, and then I was trying to get, my boys weren't particularly interested in them. I was trying to get them to, let's do a fairy garden. No, they weren't into it.
Oh yeah, it could be a mascot for Quacks of Gledlingburg.
That would be perfect.
And Sate asks, how much mess could a meatball-sized duck make? Well, presumably a meatball-sized mess.
Exactly.
When will Uranus be for sale?
It's going to be kickstarted at the beginning of February.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that as we finish up those questionably quick questions, because we do have a schedule to stick to, could you tell me about a typical day? You are currently running a Kickstarter. You've got a lot on the go. You've been extra busy. What's life for you like right now?
So yeah, there's quite a lot of social media work in terms of the Kickstarter and, writing updates and making sure that, so recently with the Kickstarter, I've been doing the little booklet that goes with that. And I've been talking to lots of different game designers, including you, of course, Bez, and kind of pulling that all together. A lot of the things I'm doing are that kind of thing, pulling things together for different projects. This is the Kickstarter. So yeah, a lot of it's really been about, post-launch, it's been about social media. I do quite a lot of networking. So I'm often in networking meetings for a couple of hours in the middle of the day. I sometimes speak at them. So I did one last week where I was the kind of the guest speaker, and I got everybody playing games. It was brilliant because they're people from all different walks of life and all different businesses. And so often you have a financial advisor giving a talk or something. And I thought, and I'm not one for showing a PowerPoint presentation. So just going to play a game. I'm going to, intersperse my my points I want to make with questions from a game, and got them all playing. And now I've had a rush of other people asking me to do this little talk at different networking meetings. So that's nice. So I often do a lot of that. And then with networking, there's a lot of follow-ups. There's a lot of one-to-one. So I have a lot of time on Zoom where I'm talking to different people. I do quite a lot of videos for my channel. I write blogs and things. So a lot of the time I'm doing kind of content creation, social media.
I really admire you. Like, you're really on point with, like, I think it's weekly videos, like weekly blog posts, weekly like wrap up of everything. Yeah.
I try and have that kind of consistency. I mean, it's not as much as you put out in terms of your your daily.
Yeah, but your stuff's actually edited. I mean, I just kind of spend a bit of time pondering it, and then sit down with amazing people like yourself, and then it's just like, and then it comes out. I feel like there's a lot more work in actually editing it and getting it to that final level of polish, which we can see on your websites. And if you
I've got the kind of the intro and the outro, which really help, my little theme tune and my animation that goes with it, and that helps to make it look like it's polished. And to be honest, when you're taking videos that you're going to edit, you develop some tricks. And one of the tricks is that if you forget what you're going to say, whenever you pause you keep looking at the camera, or you look at the camera, you make sure everything else is frozen, and then you quickly look at your notes like that, and then you go back to the camera, and it's like, then you can cut out that section and you hardly see it.
That's genius. So, like, if you ever stop, just make sure you freeze yourself.
You freeze yourself. You make.
Then it's like, what am I meant to say?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm meant to say that. Okay, and now we can continue. Exactly. Maybe I kind of started moving a little bit too early.
And it doesn't matter. Yeah, you just have to make sure you're looking at the camera again before you speak. And as long as you don't move anything else except your eyes, and you're always delivering down the camera, then you can cut it out almost seamlessly. And I think that people are actually quite forgiving of breaks and things, because they don't want to sit and watch you go anyway. So when as the more I've done it, the more I've developed those kinds of I haven't been to film school.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, things work for different people, and it doesn't matter if you're going against the grain. I mean, every time I do like a board game design 101 or whatever, like, my main takeaway, and I think the biggest thing, if people, I feel like, let me get rid of this banner and just say, comments, ask questions, fun like follow, all that good stuff. This is what we're chatting about, designing games. And I just want to say, when I talk about this stuff, like, I want to put the focus a bit more on you today, because I don't always have you with me. But, like, the biggest takeaway that I always say is do whatever you want, because it's all legitimate. It's like, if you want to make a game and then it's just for you and your loved one, and there's literally going to only be one copy and it's handmade, then that's still a worthy endeavor. It's like a declaration of love. It's a lovely thing. If you want to experiment just to see, hey, what would the game be like if a game used actual candles? And then you've got Waldschattenspiel, which is a great game. Like, Gnomes in the Forest. I don't know what Waldschattenspiel means. I think it's Shadows in the Forest. I think that's what it means.
You told me about that one before.
Oh, it's a brilliant game. Yeah. But also, I want more games with like actual candles. Like, and what would that be like? Maybe it doesn't need to be a mass-produced major game. Maybe it ends up being like little indie thing. Maybe it's a print and play thing. Maybe you put it on itch.io, whatever. And it's like, whatever you want to do follow your passion. Yeah. And so, Schattenspiel means Game of Shadows. It was Wald, which I think means Forest Shadow Game.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start off with a couple of, thank you for the resident German person. Maybe they don't want to be called the resident person living in Germany. So let's get to a couple of questions from the audience. Firstly, Alex asks, when thinking about family games, what is your strategy for reaching the wider family market? It's a bit harder on Kickstarter to reach these people because Kickstarter is primarily dominated by those a bit more entrenched in the hobby game market. So how do you reach more people?
So if you're talking about, a game you've already created and you're trying and marketing, essentially, I mean, that's one of the reasons I do networking. And I'm in the network group that I'm in, I'm the only board game designer that those people have ever met. They didn't, most of them didn't even know it was a legitimate thing you could be. So, and that there are people, lots of people like us that exist. And so you have to put yourself into places where they're going to be, so that's why I'm putting stuff out which is kind of tips for family gaming. I spend quite a lot of time in some groups on Facebook, which are sort of parenting groups or mums in business groups, where you've got people that are interested in all sorts of kind of entrepreneurial things, but they're also mums, because they tend to be open to working, to supporting new small businesses, and they're interested in what the other members are doing. So I communicate with them in that way. I'm thinking I'm about to get my games onto Amazon in the next few weeks, and that's a whole big strategy in itself. But that's, you may want to do that, you may not want to do that, but you can't deny the fact that that's where a lot of the mass market people are going to buy games from. So, if you're looking at retail and the retail outlets where people are going to be, they're not necessarily going to go into the friendly local game stores. They might not even know they exist. They won't necessarily go to the online retailers. They're going to other places. So, a lot of what I'm doing is creating kind of things that could be found in those places, and I'm creating games that look almost like gifts, because then they might be shown in gift shops. And I'm at the moment I'm submitting games to lots of different Christmas gift guides on mummy bloggers sites and things like that. That's where my target audience is going to be looking. So Kickstarter, of course, I'm getting more into, the board gaming community, and many of the people I talk to in the other spheres, they haven't even heard of it. They don't know how it works. I've had all these messages from people who want cracker games that haven't got anything to do with board gaming. They say, I don't know what to do on Kickstarter. It's almost like I have to do a little video that explains how you pledge. I had a pledge from a woman. She says, I've pledged. I don't know how many crackers I can get for this. Can you tell me? It's just so they need that they're a bit kind of newbies to that world. So I'm trying to get a balance really between the two and sit kind of happily in the middle.
I mean, this is really inspirational how you're kind of going out and reaching people where they are, rather than expecting obviously people to come to you, because that's what you've got to do. It is all about the marketing. And because, I mean, if maybe in a couple of months, if we both have time, it would be lovely to have you on again. Maybe we could explore that topic a little bit more.
Yeah.
Obviously, to focus a little bit more on the design part, this is more of a general design question, but Johan asks, in trying to create a game and then maybe get stuck at a point, how, if you ever get stuck, do you have suggestions of how to get back on track?
Play it with other people. I mean, that's the biggest thing. If sometimes I've taken, and I know it's harder at the moment with, we're not meeting as much, but whenever I've been stuck in the design of a game, I take that to a playtesting group and I say, look, I'm stuck. I know this is what I really like about it. I think this is working. What do you think? And having other people as a sounding board, even if you're doing that on Zoom and you can show people what you're doing and talk to them about the good things and the sticking points, I think that's really helpful. I think different people tap into inspiration in different ways as well. Like Bez might get it when you're on your bicycle, for example, right? And thinking about things, kind of wind blowing in your hair through the streets of London. And I might, go and lie down somewhere dark and just think about it and just kind of let my mind sort of wander around a topic. But I think, you know, the more you feel that you've got a block, the bigger the block becomes. So unless you're on a particular deadline for some reason, it's usually best, if you feel like you've come to a block with something, to just stop, leave it, mull it over at the back of your mind when you feel relaxed, and work on something else, and then come back to it in a couple of weeks. And I'm amazed anyway how much that time gives you perspective, because those emotions are not so at the forefront of your mind. So, you know, it's not so frustrating. That frustration dies down over time.
Yeah, it's a great answer about reaching out to other people, about using them as a sounding board and having their input. Because for myself, I mean, yeah, just wee things like going over and showing a game to, hi again, Chris, showing it to Chris and McCall, and maybe one of them suggests a wee thing, like McCall suggests, oh, well, 6 divides perfectly into 3. That means that we're going to focus on 2 suits each. This isn't leading to much competition. And then I'm like, hey, you know, maybe we get rid of one of them. And, you know, it's kind of a real back and forth. It's a conversation. And I think the other thing you said, sometimes you just need to leave it. Because are you on a deadline? Is it something that you're obliged to do right now? Is it something that you're being paid to do, like by the hour? Is it something that you're enjoying? Is it something that you feel, oh my God, I need to do it right now for it to turn into something good? Because if those things aren't true, if you're not enjoying it, you can always take a break. You can always step away. Yeah. And for a few days, for a few weeks, it's okay. It doesn't make you less of a designer. I've got plenty of things on the back project.
Yep, absolutely. Me too.
Now, we were just thinking, let's go step back a moment and let's define what is a family game.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's anything that can be played with a wide range of people. So with different generations, different experiences, anything, and it is a huge category, and it means different things to different people. But I think really it's just about something that lots of different people can access.
So
I think it's fairly straightforward, you know. And I'm not one for kind of saying, oh, this is a family game and this is not a family game, because some families will want to play totally different things from other families. So obviously, we have to bear that in mind when we're talking.
Your family plays Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
That's not really a family game.
No, not traditionally. But, you know, when your family's been playing board games for a long time, it is a family game.
Absolutely. And so it's, I mean, I guess the family game, and I keep coming back to, you know, Jeff Engelstein of Ludology and this is best book, just flashing up building blocks of tabletop game design. Anyway, so Jeff Engelstein, their thing about fuzzy logic, how, you know, let's not be too binary about these things. Let's not say this is a family game and there's a hard divide. That's never the case. It's an incredibly fuzzy line.
Yep.
And you could say this is, okay, maybe this is more of a family game, this is a bit less of a family game, but it's ultimately a game that the different generations, multiple generations of a family can play together. And It feels like it's all about that multi-generational aspect. It's not just the adults playing. It's not just the children. It's everyone playing together.
And that's really critical. You know, we're not talking about children's games. I'm not interested in children's games. It really very much at all, because I want to play games that I am in, that I want to play. And to, you know, the point for me of creating family games, of designing family games, is to get families playing together. And you're not going to get many adults who really want to sit down and embrace a children's game. I mean, there's only so many times you can play Red Dog, Blue Dog, let me tell you, having been there, before you just want to, you know, throw the red dog and the blue dog out of the window. And so I think that's that's really part of it. We're trying to create games that are going to appeal to adults as much as they're going to appeal to children, because then you have something that everybody wants to sit down and do together, and that's what we're aiming for. Something that everybody wants to do, because then you've got an experience, you've got a family experience that you're all coming together for.
And it's not just something that everyone can do, but that everyone wants to do.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the critical thing.
Yeah.
And so, how can we possibly achieve that? How can we make something that, I mean, presumably there's going to be multiple skill levels. We've got to balance this somehow. How do we even address this massive problem of bringing in such a diverse set of minds?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? And I don't think that I don't personally think it's necessary to create a game that everybody can compete on a completely level playing field, because we do come with completely different experiences. Adults have got many years more of strategic thinking than children have. So, unless you're looking at a game that's pure luck, and nobody really, very few people are happy playing games of pure luck, then you're not going to get something that's an absolutely level playing field. But the trick really is to have something that can be learned, so that you are learning, strategy and developing strategy and tactics through multiple plays. And if you've got something that's, as I said before, that's easy enough for everybody to get started with and to experiment with, and for everybody to make some decisions about their play, then you're going to develop that strategy over time. So I think it's really difficult to create something where there's a level playing field. But of course, the designer of family games ought to be thinking about the different kinds of people that are sitting at the table, and how they can make sure that one doesn't have a huge advantage over another.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting thing where you talk about being able to make decisions, because it's not necessarily about thinking that you're going to win, but it's about having that agency. I mean, in Grabble, one of the games for the L deck, I would compare it to Jungle Speed, where in Jungle Speed, if one person's the fastest, they're going to grab the totem, and then I didn't manage. Okay, I grabbed the totem. Oh, I did. And then it's continual disappointment. Whereas in Grabble, if that's the kind of game that obviously you are in the market for, a speed, find things that match game, the nice thing there is that you've got your own little stack. And so at the end, maybe I've got 7 cards, maybe you've got 10 cards, maybe Odin has 9, I don't know, whatever. But I've managed to get those cards. That is I've achieved something.
But you can see, as an individual player, what the outcome of your decisions was. And next time you play, you've got a sort of benchmark that you can compare your previous performance with. And I think that when we're talking about playing with children, that's one of the things that I'd encourage parents to do. Make sure that you're not focused on who's won, but you're focused on how did you do, what good decisions did you make, and how did your performance compare to your performance in the previous game, your personal performance. And so designers can be thinking about those things as they're designing, that you can allow each player to see, how well they've done. There's a game called Panic Lab. I don't know if you've come across it, and it's a speed game. And I used to be able to compete on a level playing field with my older son, but he's way too quick now. And it used to be fairly even, and now I'm lucky if I get one thing. If I win one round, I'm lucky. And so I have a pile of.
And this is through the entire deck of maybe.
The tiles are laid out, and you get tokens when you've correctly identified the right alien. You get a token. And my pile, and I think the game, if I haven't played it for a while, but I think you finish the game when you've got 5 tokens, when somebody has 5 tokens. And it's nice, of course, if somebody's got 4 and somebody's got 3 and somebody's got 5. But what happens is Alfie's got 5 and I've got 0. That's just the way it goes. And but I suppose that's just because I'm not very good at the game. But there is that, you know, mechanism built in that you can see your little pile of things in front of you, and that's quite nice. You know, you've got that kind of, oh well, I did better than last time. I'm never going to beat him, but I got one. That's one better than nothing. I'm doing better.
I mean, this is a really, and this comes into like the attitudes that a family might want to have when approaching these games. Really getting into not focusing on who won or lost, but just, hey, how many points did you score? And so maybe it's nice to have something where there is a score, as opposed to chess or Hive, where it's just, okay, there's a winner and there's a loser. If you've got something like Corridor or something like Pilos, where, okay, it's the first person to run out of balls, it's like, well, you ran out of pieces, but I only had 2 left, so you were really close. Whereas when we were starting, do you remember, like, I had 5 left when you ran out? And you can show that there's been some development to maybe encourage them. And so maybe having individual scores for each player that you can point at and say, yes, I've managed to get this little bit to increase. That's a really good aspect to design in.
One of the reasons why roll and writes tend to work really well for families, and there's loads of reasons why roll and writes work well for families, particularly the roll and writes where you've got simultaneous play, because for a start, everybody's playing all the time. And that's one of the best things you can do when you're designing a game for families, is either really quick turns where you don't have to wait very long before you're doing something again, or turns where you properly do something when you're a passive player, not just a boring, you know, supplementary thing that, you know, you get to move something, you know, something you get a choice about, that you get to think about if when you're a passive player, or that you're all doing simultaneous all the time that you're playing. And that's one of the reasons why lots of my games have that in, because it's really positive for families, because kids can cope with a lot of complexity, but they cannot cope with downtime. And lots of adults can't cope with it as well. But you're going to lose the family so quickly if you ask kids to sit around and wait for their turn. It's just going to be the death of any game night. But also on a roll and write, if you've got your own score sheet and you count up what you've got at the end, you can play and not even share what you've got with each other. There's less interaction, and interaction is obviously good from a game point of view. But when you're playing with families, if if the children are prone to argument, if you struggle to get games on the table because there's loads of fights and tears and messy explosions, then something where there's limited player interaction is a really good shout. But also, you can just, you know, you can keep your score secret. Nobody else can see. Nobody knows who's winning as you go through the game. And you can just keep a note of what you got and try and beat your score next time.
Do you think that then less interaction is basically, do you want to limit that in most family games? I mean,
no, not most family games, but what I think, you know, as I said at the beginning, each family is different, and you know your family as a parent, you know your family. And I'm really keen that there are lots of options for families that have stopped playing games or don't play games because whenever they get games to the table, there are problems with arguments. You know, there's conflict between the players. So having games where there isn't conflict on the table, where the game is not built around conflict, where it's, you know, that isn't all hanging on take that mechanisms, which isn't all about, you know, some area control is obviously a lot of conflict. So having games that don't hang around that are easily available for those people can get them playing games again. And it's really saddens me and many other game designers to think that a lot of people's experience of games and what they associate board games to be are some pretty, you know, questionable games that are, you know, you can love or loathe Monopoly, but it's not a very good family game. You've got player elimination, you've got, you know who's winning all the time, you can just see the stack of money, that, and you could be losing for hours. I mean, that's a crap game for a family. Whether you like the game or not, it doesn't work for most families. Then you've got things like Cluedo, where you've got, you know, your powers of logical deduction and how much you can pick up from what other people are asking each other is so much more developed in an adult than it is in a child. It's not a good family game, not really. So you've got these games that people think are just, you know, what board games are. And it's really frustrating because, of course, they just say they don't like board games. What?
100%.
They say they don't like board games, but they haven't played any good ones. They haven't played any games that are great for families. And so, you know, that's what I'm trying to do, to get, you know, to make sure that there are options for families that have all these, you know, before I was a board game designer, I ran a education company training teachers to manage behavior. So I know lots about teenage behavior and, you know, how to get the best out of people and what kind of situations to avoid and how parents can help kind of create those positive environments. And a lot of the time you start with a good game on the table and you're halfway there. You are halfway there because you haven't got that kind of conflict going on.
I mean, I will probably get into the notion of Kitty Cataclysm and whether it, because obviously that's a high-tech dat game.
It is, but it's a short game, Bez, and it's a, you know, and I've done games that sort of take that as well, but it's a short game and it's a fun game, and you play rounds very quickly. And it's a very different thing than a game of Munchkin, for example, which could last quite a long time, like a really long time, and is just about ganging
multiple hours.
Yes, yeah. And whereas Kitty Cataclysm is never going to do that, and it's just, you know, you play that because you want just a, you know, a fun, fairly quick experience, and you know when you walk into that what you're getting. And you can cope with that for, you know, and the fun aspect of it and the kind of comedy cards and things is great for families. So, you know, it's about balance, isn't it? And some families might not be able to cope with even that kind of amount of take that in those short games, but others will.
For sure. I mean, even as an adult, I personally find that the more political, the more random a game is, the shorter I want it to be. But the key thing is that you keep talking about it's about knowing your own family. But as designers, we, in theory, have to know everyone's family, know this kind of protein family. Alan has a couple of questions. Firstly, do you find it hard to use your own family as a test bed because they are so atypical, because they're able to play more complex games?
Yes. It is hard because they have well, look, so I do create games that aren't as complex as the ones that we choose to play, but we also choose to play a lot of games that are not as complex as Terraforming Mars, that have that kind of choice, that agency, but aren't as, on the face of it, as complex. So I find it hard to use the family as a test bed because they prefer, well, the younger one prefers to play games that have been published by somebody else because he just thinks they're better. Because, you know, he's my son, and of course he's going to think that. And no, I don't want to play whatever game you've come up with now. Thank you very much. You're going to change it anyway. It won't be the best that it can be. I'll play it when it's published, is what he says.
I mean, that's kind of true.
Yes, it is kind of true. And he has limited, you know, just patience, I suppose, for giving feedback and stopping in the middle of the game and saying, let's try something else. But my nieces are particularly good, and they do play hobby games as well, but they don't play things like terraforming. And yeah, he's, well, that's,
I mean, that's why you like children, because children are honest and children can be harsh.
Yeah, and you need that, you know. Sometimes, in fact, some of the best feedback I've had is from him. He just say, no, I won't play it because of that. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to change that then. You know, I've heard you. I've seen, you know, once I gave him an explanation, and he walked away from the table and said, "I'm not playing it. I'm not playing it. I want to play it. It's going to be. I don't want to play it because of that." I was like, "Oh, come on, we'll get over that."
I mean, that in itself is kind of feedback. I mean,
yeah.
But
I'm lucky.
I know Matt Leacock's daughter is famously incredibly harsh. Like, they'll play one of Matt's games for like 20 minutes and say, this is rubbish, I'm not playing it, make it better. And they won't give any. That'll basically be their feedback. Yeah. Alan Outson asks, how have you researched the culture of family games? Is it through discussions with other families, mostly mums, or other research methods? You've already talked about your background in education, maybe
Yeah.
you can talk about gathering this knowledge and being able to analyze how is your game performing for families, because it's so hard to test for families.
Yeah, it is. It is really hard. And I think it's easier to, think about, will this work for a group of kids playing together? And when I say kids, I mean teenagers. Like, will they sit around and play this game with each other? And will a group of adults sit around and play this together? And it's kind of easier to think about those two things in isolation. Now, if everybody likes the game, if all age ranges will, enjoy the game and want to play the game, then really potentially you've got a game that's going to work for a family together. And it is about, for me, it's about avoiding those problems, those problems of lots of downtime, and thinking about how you're going to communicate the rules in the first place. So making sure you've got how to play video so the family can learn together. It's kind of functional things like that, which help to make a game into a proper family game that is going to be successful for a family to play together. So that doesn't really answer your question. I mean, I was a teacher before I ran the education company, taught a lot through games, and I've got a huge family. And I test things out with my brother and my sister and their kids, and friends and their children. And yes, it's I have friends that will take games and will play, and I've kind of over lockdown watched people playing games via Zoom, sending them things and watched them, playing, and tried to explain to them over Zoom. And you see when the concentration drops, and it's almost always when they're trying to learn the rules, when they're, before they fully understand the game. So it's about making sure that everybody can get it to start with, and that whenever you're making a decision about what you're doing, you're able to plan that in advance as much as possible, so that if it's not your turn and you're waiting for your turn, it's not so reactive to what the previous person's done. Or for example, in my game Donut Dash, it's a programming game. You've got 4 cards, north, south, east, and west, and it's simple programming. And at the beginning of each round is simultaneous. Everybody's choosing one of those cards to play face down on the table, and that is going to indicate the direction that your little imp thieves are going to move on the board. And so if you have north, both of your imps are going to go north. Well, everybody's making that decision at the same time, and then you're putting it down. And then in player order, you're executing that move. Now, what the previous player has done, what they've selected might have an impact on you, but you have no choice at that point other than which of my 2 imps am I going to move first.
I mean, I think the key takeaway is to make sure that the game doesn't ever slow down, because this is going to be the death knell of a game. Yep. And that it's not just about the design, but sure, learning how to play the game, making that part as easy as possible is parts of the aftercare, making those videos, getting good rules written, simplifying those rules as much as possible. But part of that simplification process is embedded within the design, looking at every rule and saying, do we need this?
Yeah.
Because
and does it make sense? And will you be able to remember to do it? So, and that's just good game design, right? You don't want to have things that you have to keep referring back to the rule book to remember the process of taking a certain action. I find that really difficult anyway as an adult. And also it's about how easy is it to get this game to the table? How long does it play? Does it take to play? How hard is the setup? How quick is the setup? How easy is the putting away at the end of the game? Because when you are thinking about the experiences of family, the game starts for the adult. It's the game. You're playing a game of getting kids to the table and getting to have a positive experience, and it starts before you've even suggested you play a game, right? And it ends after everybody's left the room and the game's back on the shelf. It's not just the play of the game that has an impact on the experience as a whole. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a good experience to keep people playing games. And that's what I feel that that's what my job is, right? I'm trying to get people to play games. So having a really good arc of what's the whole experience, that's that's valuable as a game designer.
I mean, of course, you're in a slightly different position because you're not pitching to other companies. You have all of this in your own head, that you need to have this unification between the box art and the message that the box promises, and being able to attract kids in and get it out and deliver that as simply as possible.
Yeah.
Hello, J Foolsguard. It's lovely to see you in the chat. And they have a question about teenagers in particular. Do you have any tips for teenagers?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I do is really aimed at that age range. So I say age 8+ because an 8-year-old can deal with almost any complexity that an adult can deal with. And of course, the same is true of teenagers. Teenagers just, if it's really interesting when teenagers want to play games. They love playing games. I learned that when I was a teacher. You say you want to play a game, and that's great because they can access in the classroom, they can access learning through playing games. And at home, it's a great way for people to kind of have that conversation and that connection. Anything that you're doing to make a game work for an adult will also work for a teenager, as long as you've thought about all those things that I've just said. So when I'm talking about family gaming, I'm kind of talking about teenagers. I'm talking about teens and that pre-teen bit. I'm not talking about children younger than 8, because you do need to make different kinds of games for younger children, because you can't have the kind of complexity that you can in other games. But the children and teenagers are used to learning. They are used to learning complex stuff. So just because you might see a group of teenagers sitting around playing Uno and not see them sitting around playing anything else, that is just because they don't know about something else. It's not because they can't cope with the complexity of it. If you want to design games that teenagers are going to play with each other, make sure it's a pack of cards that they can shove in their bag and take with them. Make sure you can play in a big group and that it's not just a game for 4 players that you need a big table for, because teenagers are usually, and maybe COVID aside, are usually on the move, sitting down in a park around and if you're trying to create games that are designed for them, that you want to kind of generate a bit of a buzz about among teenagers, then you need to be thinking about where they're playing games, what the situation is for them, how they're communicating with each other, and how many people are in a group.
And I mean, this is where memories are forged, where people talk about playing games in a common room 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
And it's interesting, like you say that people are into learning things, but they are able to, but it doesn't mean they necessarily want to, of course.
No, it doesn't mean they necessarily want to, but the complexity itself is not the thing that is necessarily a barrier. It's how long does it take me to learn how to play this game? How long does it take this game to be played? How quickly can I teach it to other people? And of course, that might be connected with the complexity. That you will find that more complex games are longer to teach, but it's the problem with those games is that they take a long time to teach, and that they're harder to get to the table. Not inherently the complexity within them.
I just want to lots of love hearts to Alan, who says that they don't have a culture of regularly playing board games in our family. 3 teenagers. I thought lockdown would be the perfect time, but this hasn't happened. I mean, Alan, I thought that you bought doodles. Did your family not enjoy doodles? Maybe, don't know, it's just, have you tried Wibble with them? I don't know, have you tried Wibble?
I think sometimes it's, that as board gamers, we know how great games are and game playing is. We know how much our children will enjoy it, but they don't know that. As teenagers, they can't think this board game is is going to be so much better than what I'm currently doing in my bedroom, you know, and talking to my friends or being online or doing something else. This is something Dad wants me to do or Mum wants me to do, and you know, why should I get involved in that? So actually, you have to be a little bit sneaky sometimes. You know, I talk about stealth tactics to getting teenagers to the table, and you know, you have to sort of lure them in. And solo games actually is one of the ways you can lure them in, that if you're setting yourself up and you're doing something interesting, then, you know, they'll come and talk to you about it, and they might hang around for 5 minutes and look at what you're doing and maybe even sit down with you. But it is really tricky. And so, you know, that's why it's important to have games that are different lengths. I mean, it's not the case in every family that you're going to get a perfect evening, you know, or they probably know you too well, Alan. It's not the case in every family that you're going to get a perfect, you know, board game night every week. But it might be, you know, for example, I think, Alan, you've probably seen these before, but you know, I do these coaster games. So the game's on one side, the rules are on the reverse, and that's apart from a piece of paper for this game. Not all of the games need a piece of paper. This one, for example, doesn't need anything apart from the coaster. That's a 2-player game. This game is a 2-player game. It takes 5 minutes to play. It's a deduction game, and all you need is the coaster. Now, if you've got this in your car, in the glove compartment, and you're sitting in the car chatting, and you've got 5 minutes waiting for one of the other kids, then that's something you can play. If you're sitting in a restaurant, you know, and you manage to get your kids to put the phones away, you know, having a pack of cards or having something straightforward, you know, they are a sitting audience. I often deal out cards with dinner, or, you know, tiles or dominoes or something with dinner, so that you know, you're sitting here, you're going to be here for the next 20 minutes to eat dinner anyway. I'm going to try and see if I can extend that by 5 minutes at the end of the meal, and I can do that by handing out cards with dinner. Now, actually, the teenagers may think that that's a good thing, because one of the things that teenagers hate more than anything is having conversations about how their day has been with their parents. So if you can bypass that conversation and actually play a game and talk about the game and talk through the game, you might find you're able to extend dinner times like that. But that's what I mean by stealth tactics, that you take them by surprise. Don't make a big song and dance about it. Just say, have a look at this, let's play. It takes 5 minutes. It might work, might not work.
And Xate asks quickly whether the coaster games are able to be used as coasters.
Yes, they are. Yeah. They're cardboard coasters like you find in a pub.
So they're not coasters that you would necessarily keep using for wet drinks and expect to last many years, but you can use them for quite a while.
You can use them for quite a while as a coaster. What will happen if you're always using it for wet drinks as a coaster is some of the rules might get rubbed off a bit on the back. But if you always put them on the game side, then it'll be fine. So yeah, they do last for ever such a long time, actually. But yeah, if you want to keep them pristine, don't use them as an actual coaster, but you can.
I know that with my Whipple plus coasters, as the LDEC used to be called, you know, there's a lot that Chris is using some at their house, and I'm using some, and we kind of keep reusing them. It's fine because it's not normal cardboard. It's kind of pulpy, and it's quite traditionally used in pubs. So yeah. Alan asks, are you going to expand?
I clearly need to. I have placemat games, which are giant sort of A3 roll and write games on placemats. And maybe I need to make a tray version of a placemat game. But you'd need one each, you see. Maybe that'd be good for TV dinners. So instead of having the placemat on the table because it was designed for just what we said, you know, to play while you eat, right? To get the kids to, so, you know, get one of these placemat games, play while you eat, put it on a tray if you want to. Maybe I need to do that.
Rowan asks, do you think that the box and inserts have an effect on the feeling of the family board game? Like, let's say opening the game has one of those magnetic clicks and it's like a little treasure box. Or do you think that all of this matters? I mean, the cracker is kind of like a novelty item. I mean, it's basically form over function, you could argue.
It is. And the idea behind the cracker is that, you know, you can reuse it. So it's got a twist end. This will probably form the part of the Christmas kit for different families. Inside it's got, it's plastic free, and it's got playing cards and wooden components and mini imps and things, so that, you know, and it's designed to, yes, it's designed, it is form over function, because you could put these things in a box and it would be more robust. But as a cracker, it's going to get put away with the Christmas decorations and be brought out in December when the tree goes up and be put on the Christmas table. And for a month in the year, that will be played, and it will form part of the tradition. Now, you know, playing games and getting kids to play games is about, you know, creating shared experiences as a family. And one of the lovely things about games is that you can kind of create traditions and rituals around them. And I think generally, yes, it is important. That's why I've created the Puzzle Box, which is a board game and puzzle box, which does exactly what you said. It's like a treasure box. You know, it's a cardboard box, a postal box, but inside it's got all sorts of stuff. It's got different games. It's got some packing material. It's got, you know, stickers all over the place, and it's an exciting experience to open, and I want people to look forward to those coming in the post. And I thought very carefully about the branding of the Dark Imp and what the boxes are going to look like, because of course it's the parent that buys them, but if the teenager looks at the game and thinks, oh, I'm not going to play that, then, you know, that it's completely pointless, because they're designed to be, you know, to try and get everyone in. That's why the imp is kind of all over everything, because that branding pulls people in and pulls them together. So,
and we've got someone earlier on today said, "Oh, the Dark Imp, you must have Gallo's sense of humor," because, you know, it sounds a little bit subversive. Do you know what I mean? It's not like
intentional. That's going to appeal to teenagers, right? And for the adults, you know, the Dark Imp is a little bit, you know, the Dark Imp is a teenager. That's what they are. You know, it's a kind of cool, kind of subversive, slightly mischievous teenager who really at the heart of them, you know, might put on a big act, but at the core just wants to play. And that's why it's the Dark Imp. And it comes strongly through the branding, I think.
And hello, Javier. It's lovely to see you. And there's some compliments. I guess Javier's already quite familiar with your work. And getting back on track, because I know we have limited time, and we've talked a lot about how games for families can be brilliant. You've given a lot of tips already. Can you think of, you don't have to name names unless you want to, or you could talk about my games. I give you permission to, maybe not, anything that's I self-publish. You can talk badly about it, or whatever you want.
I would never. You want some games that are not good, right?
Yes. What games do you think are like, something went wrong there? What problems are there that you've seen people making classic mistakes when trying to make a family game?
Well, so I call these dangerous games. They're not necessarily not family games, but they're dangerous because of certain things. And I've written about these. There's a section in my book, which I'm just looking at now, in the arguments section, which is avoid dangerous games is the first tip. You know, if you want to get rid of the arguments, avoid the dangerous games. And looking at these, I mean, I've only given 5, I think, but they sort of go across all sorts of things. So the first one I've said is categories, because that's designed around an argument. And you'd think that was a family game. But, you know, it's a party game, so you'd think it was a family game. But there's so many arguments around things like that everybody gets to decide whether something is okay or not. But, you know, it's not that the game says that something is all right or not, but the other players decide what the validity of things is. And that's always going to cause arguments. It relies on those arguments, that kind of game. So, you know, games that cause arguments, diplomacy and anything like that, where you've got kind of negotiation and where there's backstabbing and where you're trying to get alliances. I mean, again, this is, many adults don't want to play these games either, that you are you're trying to, it relies on other people believing what you say and trusting you and developing alliances that you then break. Can be really damaging to play in a family context, and could stop people from playing games in the future, and has done. I know, you know, we only played diplomacy once as in my family when I was younger. We're not playing it again. That was when I was a child. I remember it so clearly. It was one of the worst gaming experiences I've ever had. It was hideous. I felt betrayed and let down by my family. And similarly, some social deduction games that rely on you bluffing and lying about who you are, they can be quite dangerous and cause problems. And then things like things that rely you to mind read, so bridge or Hanabi, for example, Hanabi, where you feel like, you know, people have given you clues but you've forgotten them, or you've let the side down because you haven't picked up on something somebody said, and the interpretation, like the mind, for example, relies on you to be a mind reader, yeah, and that's not great. You know, those are cooperative games. These are cooperative situations. But if you're not on exactly the same wavelength, or you've missed something that somebody else has said, they can be really angry with you. So those are difficult things. And then
that's a really interesting thing, if I can pause you just like that, tension between wanting to bring people together, to get them to work together, where you'd think, okay, a cooperative game, this is ideal, this is perfect. But then through that cooperative game, maybe certain people start feeling a bit of guilt. Maybe someone else might start actually vocally blaming someone else. And you see, I said we should do that. And if we had, then, you know, this entire continent would be saved from whatever.
Cooperatives are really difficult. So this is another one of those, for some families it really works and for other families it doesn't. If you've got a child that can't bear losing, that can't cope with losing, and that colours everything, then a cooperative game might be really good, because then they're either losing as a team or they're winning as a team, and they don't feel like they're singled out and they don't feel like they're on the spot and things like that. But cooperative games don't work very well in my house, because my children would much rather be masters of their own decision making than have to be beholden to what each other does. And the arguments start almost immediately as soon as we start playing a cooperative game, and it can get really nasty. And no competitive game does that in my house. No competitive game will have that kind of argument, but cooperative games really cause problems in our house. And if you've got a cooperative game where there's no limit on the communication, and where you could play as a single player, like Pandemic, you could easily play that solo being all the people, or like Horrified, you can easily play that solo being all the different people, then you've got a problem, because you're going to possibly have an alpha player, and that might not be a problem in some families, and some families might be better at kind of communicating, but my kids are really rubbish at that, so we try and avoid things like that. Even though Horrified is a brilliant game and I love Pandemic, it doesn't quite work for my lot.
I know it was TC Petty who called these essentially solitaire by committee, where the game is like running that committee and being able to manage all these personalities around the table. Yep. And for sure, I've had wonderful memories with Pandemic Legacy Season 1, where everyone around the table was contributing in their own way and bringing something to it. But I was actually learning as a person, okay, let's make sure that this other person who doesn't play board games that much, let's, you know, always ask them their opinion first. So to make sure that they feel heard. But asking this kind of thing from a child is severely difficult.
It's really hard.
But so you say you don't want to have judging or lying or backstabbing, or potentially, blame and guilt might be issues. What else?
And those broken trust games, but also player elimination. I mean, Yeah, unless it's a really quick game and you're talking about a 5-10 minute game where you're going to play multiple hands and you might be out before anyone else. That's okay if you're playing multiple rounds, but if you're playing a long game and there's player elimination, just get rid of it. It just doesn't work. When it's really clear who the winner is, sometimes that's fine, but other times it's best if there's a bit of, you can tell who's winning if you really look, but you're not, it's not that you can't, you're so far behind that you feel like you're never going to catch up. So games that don't have that kind of catch up mechanism or are really obvious who's winning are often difficult as well. But just to come back to the cooperative point, so this is something that was actually things we've talked about. Uranus was the basis for Uranus. I was trying to create a cooperative game with no alpha player. That was my initial kind of design inspiration. And so so Uranus has got a different, everybody plays on their own board, their own moon, and you're all trying to escape to Uranus, to the center planet. And you're working pretty much on your own board. So it has all the good things about a roll and write in terms of making your own decisions on your own board. No one else is going to decide what you do on your board. And you're all playing simultaneously.
That feeling of agency and ownership.
And that simultaneous play really helps with that as well, because you're doing something while somebody else is doing something, but there is interaction because you can help your neighbors, and so you're all trying to work together to get somewhere, but there isn't that alpha player problem. And I think so there are ways around it. It's not like all cooperative games are rubbish. It's just those, and I don't mean that anyway, but it's something to think about. How do different families deal with different situations, really?
For sure. As we kind of finish up, do you have any final tips that you would like to give people who are starting to make their own family game, whether it's for their own family or more trickily, more giving them a bit of a more difficult challenge, trying to make a family game that can be enjoyed by all the different families out there?
Yeah, I mean, just see what you can come up with, really. Play the game with kids, play the game with adults, and then play with, and make sure you include grandparents as well, because if you truly want a multi-generational game, you've got to include grandparents as well. And those family games are ones that are rich experiences for all those people. And your children may be used to learning new stuff and more complex things, but when you look at the older end of the spectrum, they're not quite so practiced, and so that's where you might want to think about the complexity levels, is if you're trying to get grandparents involved as well. And of course, if you've got a mum like I have, then you're lucky and she can cope with all sorts of things, but not everybody has that. So yeah, I'd just say, just try it, see what you come up with, and put it in front of families. I mean, there are so many opportunities, there's so many different things you could come up with, and there'll be things that nobody else has thought of. So you can't,
go wild and have a laugh, enjoy yourself, because designing is a fun thing to do. Yeah,
and look for what people are enjoying doing. Find the fun is even more important in a family situation than when you're designing hobby games for gamers, because that's what they're going to be doing it for. They're not going to be doing it for the crunchy decision making necessarily. They're going to be doing it because they want to have a good time, and they want to have that fun together, have that experience.
I want to say thank you. We've covered so much. We've talked about simplicity, co-ops, the fact that anyone can do it. We talked about Waldschattenspiel and Lost Cities and other games besides, reaching out where the folk are, to folk who don't necessarily know board games, about submitting to Christmas gift guides or mum bloggers. And in order to get unstuck, reach out to other people. There are other people who are going to help you. The more you think about it, sometimes the more that blockage exists, about it needing to be multi-generational, and not only people being able to, but actually wanting to play this game, about being easy to get started and make some decisions, having benchmarks, having your own personal score, so you can have your own ownership over some of the decisions and be like, okay, I managed to get my personal highest score. Oh, I managed to do the wheat strategy. If your family is, you know, playing a grit cloth, or I don't know, maybe less interaction is actually what you want. We talked about potentially low conflict, although maybe if you've got a super short game, maybe that's fine. We didn't talk so much about negative feedback loops, which could be an episode entirely on itself, like about the catch-up mechanisms, about making sure you've got how to play videos, about keeping it simple, making things make sense, about getting them to play with the box, with the instructions, because that in itself can be challenging for a parent, the person who's trying to get their family to play. Make it easy, make it enticing, make it portable for teenagers, make it easy, speedy, and just lovely to set up, exciting to set up. Make it something that's 5 minutes that you can put into glove compartments like the coaster games, or indeed, again, just the talk box where you can play it sitting next to each other to fill those snippets of time. And we talked about the Christmas cracker, where actually form matters because it becomes the function. Because in the case of the Christmas cracker, it's going to be something that you pack away and then you bring out with the Christmas decorations. So maybe it becomes this yearly tradition. We talked about party games not necessarily being family games, which is a big, you might think of them as synonymous, but that's totally untrue. You've got adult party games, which are clearly not for kids at all. Yeah. And you've got party games which, whilst are not offensive or vulgar, or dealing with themes of death, like Machine of Death is an interesting party game, but I wouldn't play it with my 8-year-old niece, probably. Yeah, almost certainly. But it's, you know, some of these party games, when there's judging or lying involved, you know, it's not a great fit. When there's backstabbing or things where you feel blame or feel guilt, or where you break the trust, or where there's player elimination. And yeah, do you have anything else that you want to say as we wrap up?
No, I think you've done an admirable job, Bez. Well done for your excellent note taking.
Thank you. If you wish to find me, I am stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcards.com, where you can buy my stuff. Twitter.com/stuffbybez is where I share the most stuff, and I managed to get photos on my phone working again. So Instagram.com/stuffbez, you'll find more pictures from me soon. Twitch.tv/stuffbez is where I stream. Facebook.com/thingsbybez is a thing, and stuffbez@gmail.com is where you can find me. And Ellie, where can people find you?
Yep, so the website is darkimp.com, thedarkimp.com. And the same on Twitter, and on Facebook, and the same on YouTube. No, the same on Instagram. And the YouTube links there. On Twitter, I'm Ellie Dix Tweets. And yeah, that's where you can find everything. The website is the main one, thedarkimp.com. And Javier was asking about the coasters. And yes, you can buy them on the website.
And you can also buy them as parts of the Kickstarter, which we'll mention in about 2 minutes. And I just want to say also the links are in the YouTube, Facebook, and because they're pasted in Twitch, people can just click them directly. Yep. And now I want to say thank you to everyone. There's been some fantastic questions from everyone. Yeah, special thanks to Jeroen for some amazing questions, and Alan, and yeah, just everyone's been like so amazing. And massive thank you to Ellie. Thank you for this has been one of my favorite episodes out of 150 episodes. This has been like in the top 5 for sure. I don't want to say this is a top 1 because then other people get upset.
I'll take top 5. That's excellent.
But this has been a super lovely episode. And I want to say you can share whatever you want, only if you want to. Exciting or boring, important or fun, it is up to you. So is there anything you want to share, something you're looking forward to, hopes or ambitions? You can share anything, something exciting or trivial, important or just fun. So I want to, I don't know what to share. It's I've got personal stuff that I don't know if I want to share because it involves other people. I've got some exciting bits of news. I've heard that Yogi is in WH Smith.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Hooray, that's good. So even more people will be able to find it. And that's what we were
Fingers
talking
crossed.
about earlier. Yeah, that's good. That's excellent. Well done.
And so I'm really happy with VR distribution. They've done a great job with that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alan Oughton. It's lovely to see that. And everyone else, feel free to share whatever you want. Ellie, would you like to...
Yes. So on Thursday, the Cracker Kickstarter is closing. So it's the end of the campaign. Thursday morning, 10:30, 1st of October. And yeah, it's really cool. It hit its target quite quickly. And yeah, you can see 70 hours to go. Woo, it's gone to hours. Exciting. So you can get the Cracker. You can also get the Coaster Games as an add-on, and you can, in different pledge levels, you can also get a little mini roll and write called Mini Town as well. So that's good. I'm also looking forward to a photo shoot we're doing on Saturday. Ooh. And the imps are currently at the photographers being photographed, doing the product and all the games, having product shot done. And then on Sunday, it's the imps, the impulse. So these are imp meeples, but I call them impulse, of course.
Good game. Good name.
They've been up to no good with the photographer. And then on Saturday, we're doing a big photo shoot with all the games and families playing the game. So that'll be good.
That is super lovely. Yeah. And Alan says that they are going to do a few hours contacting estate agents and builders. Well, I hope that goes very well. And I hope that everyone in the chat has something that they are looking forward to, and that you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. This is where I've got notes to remind myself to look at Twitch, so that those people who are on Twitch can potentially do a raid if there's Twinkly Tanya Plays. They're a lovely person. I'm going to nominate them for a raid. So what Twinkly Tanya is playing a game, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, and yeah, this is just a way for me to give a shout out to people who are decent people and yeah, nice people, and yeah, putting good stuff into the world. Like watching other people play games. We've got Xate is looking forward to playing some Inkwell games on Wednesday evening potentially, and we'll invite everyone else along. And Odin is in full-on Kickstarter preparation mode. And so yeah, spread the word for the next streams. Look at stuffbybeds.com/streams. My stream tomorrow is with Alex from Dice Breakers, and we are talking about making a splash, and it's kind of a marketing thing based on their time with Board Gaming Company and now working in media, and also they sell stuff themselves. Lovely person. And then Wednesday will be 10 games that I love. And for now, all I want to say is bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, bye. Bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye. Bye bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye. Bye bye.